Good morning, I'm CJ Sanders. I'm your host of Shade of the Pineywoods podcast. And I was just going to meet with you guys and have a little bit of a episode 3, I think is what we're on right now. Just before we get started, everyone should know that this podcast will contain very sensitive subjects. Not everything is suitable for all viewers. And discretion is advised. If you trigger easy or something like that, I would not recommend watching this because it is a raw, unfiltered podcast. Usually it's me. I do have guest episodes as well. Today you get me. I was going to share the story of when I met my stepdad, Al. And so I was like 10. I may not even have been 10 yet. And my mom was doing home health, which is where you go in for a couple hours into someone's home who is disabled or older, and you cook and clean and do that kind of thing for them. So she wasn't really making a lot of money, and we still were living as we had for years, where like we just didn't have a lot of groceries, struggled to pay bills. Ironically enough, my mother never went without cigarettes. That was definitely a priority for her. And I think because of that, I refused to be that person. Like, I don't have I have to have a cigarette, or I have to have my, favorite drink in the morning or whatever like that. That's not a priority for me, and I think that's one of the reasons why. But I remember we were living in a little wood-framed house where a dollar store currently is now. My son's classmate and friend, his parents actually bought the house many years ago and had it moved to their property, and it's a really nice home. They did some add-ons to it and some updates, and it's a really pretty little house. But I don't physically remember moving from there to my stepdad's. I don't know if I was at school when they did it, or I just don't have a memory of it. I've discussed it with my brother, and he doesn't remember moving there either, which is really odd. Anyway, so I remember there being like a can of soup and a bag of chips in the pantry, and that was it. And my mom brings this guy over who was 20 years her senior, and she says, he's going to be your new stepdad. We're going to move in with him. Of course, I'm excited. I'm like, yay, can I call you Dad? And, I'm really happy. I did not know a stranger. I still don't really know a stranger. I'll talk to just about anybody. But we moved in with him. He was still working, even though he was older and was probably well past retirement age. He was still working. And suddenly life changed for me in many, many ways. One of the things that changed, I did not call him Dad, but for a couple of months, and then I started calling him by his name. The abuse started pretty quickly after we got settled in. There was mental, sexual, and physical abuse. My brother did not live there long. Al didn't want him there because he wasn't a girl and he was in the way, basically. And so my brother ended up moving in with some friends. He didn't live there for long. But he was an alcoholic, and so there was always people at the house drinking. There was always fighting. There was a lot of dominoes. There was a lot of trail riding on horses, which I recently found out does not mean the same to some people as it does to the East Texas people. When we trail ride, we get together and we just ride back roads on the horses. Apparently for some people, trail riding is riding trails like through the woods on horses. We did not ride through the woods. But my mom usually followed in the car with the cooler of beer every once in a while she would ride a horse, or she would ride in a buggy with the horse or mule. And the buggy would have the cooler beer because everybody was drinking. So, like I said in my first episode, things that were normal for other people that would have just been shocked by what was normal for me was normal for me, because it was an every weekend occurrence. It was an everyday occurrence. It was not anything out of the norm for there to be people at the house in the middle of the week drinking and playing dominoes and fighting. And, I've seen people fall off the horse because they were intoxicated. And it was just like, okay, where now if somebody saw that, they would be like, oh my gosh, this person has a problem, that's dangerous. And so the one thing that really did change for me was we were not hungry anymore. After we moved in there, I don't ever remember being hungry for food. There was always food. We grew our own garden. We'd raise our own pigs. He hunted and, would do deer. And so it's like I had this security that I had not had in my earlier years and that my mother did not have. But at what cost did we have it? And it's really weird because I look at my childhood in probably a way different light than a lot of people. There was a lot of tragedy there. There was a lot of things that I should not have seen or lived with or had to deal with. But to not be hungry anymore was a game changer, I guess. Even though it still affects my relationship with food now. It's an interesting way to look at things, I guess. And not everything was traumatic. I enjoyed riding horses. I enjoyed playing dominoes. I enjoyed it when people come over to play dominoes with the adults and they'd bring their kids and we would go play. That stuff was fun. And so again, it's like that security comes at what cost? I would never put my kids in the position that I was left in. I know when I was probably about 14 or 15, I told my mom what was happening. And her response to me was, I can't do anything because if I do, we won't have anywhere to live. Which actually turned out to be a lie later. Because when I was going through her things after she passed away when I was 21, I found every check she wrote for the house note out of her account. The deed was in her name. She used my dad's Social Security check to pay the house note. So technically she could have done something because it was her house. She had a notarized piece of paper stating that she couldn't remove him from the home as long as he was alive. But I think had she put her foot down and tried to stop the abuse, she would have had a leg to stand on. And so that I have trouble understanding. And I get that she did not have any self-esteem, and she wasn't, I'm going to go work 3 jobs to take care of business kind of person. I understand why she was that way, because life had kind of beat her down. But it's still really hard for me to fathom that she would be okay with kick my son out after his father passed away and leave my daughter in a situation that she shouldn't have been left in. But, coulda, woulda, shoulda. This is, 3, 4 decades ago or whatever, more than 4 decades ago, I guess. And so it's really weird to look back, and I do have a lot of happy memories, but there are a lot of memories and a lot of behavioral traits that I have now that stem from growing up in that environment. It made me more tolerant for things that I probably should not have been tolerant for. And so if someone is dealing with that type of trauma, and I know people that have a drug addiction or alcohol addictions and things like that, and they chop it up to it being, well, I was, abused as a child, or I was this or I was that, and those are all excuses to me, because you can heal from that and you can move forward from that, and you shouldn't use it as a crutch to have habits that destroy you. And so it was really odd to look back and think about Al and the memories and the things that went on in our home. And now I only had a few friends that could come and stay the night because, well, I lived in a small town and everybody knew how he was. So they didn't want their kid over at the house, which I get. And so I only had a couple of friends that come over, and he would try to do things to them, and they would just be like, whatever, and they would blow him off. I had one friend that he put in a situation that she literally ran out of the house and ran home and never come back and stayed the night at my house. And to this day, I still feel awful about that situation. It's one of those things that we just don't talk about. Like, we still know each other. Our kids kind of grew up together, and we just didn't acknowledge it. It was one of those things that it happened, and we're just not going to talk about it. But if she ever sees this episode, she's going to know who she is, and I want her to know that I carry that guilt with me still to this day, that the situation that happened. And I know it's not my guilt to carry, but it is. But the things I tolerated as an adult, especially right after I moved out of Al and my mom's house, I should have ran harder to get out of that situation. I did try to leave it a couple of times, and my mom was like, you don't need to come back home, you need to stay where you are. So I actually have a picture that I'm going to have done, and it's symbolic to this story. So he grew up, he was like, I don't know, the baby of 8 or 9 kids or something, and then he had like 8 kids of his own. And his parents died when he was young, so he kind of raised himself, and he was uneducated, really good at math though, but couldn't read or write. And he did a lot of rodeoing, and he would get drunk and, entertain people that were at the house or whatever. One of the things that he did is he would make me hold a lit cigarette between my lips, and I'd have to stand really straight and still like this. And the more he had drank, the better he was at this. But he would take a whip and pop the cherry off the end of the cigarette that I had between my lips. He was that precise with the whip. And he would make me stand there and do that in front of people. We had a little rat terrier dog, and he'd make her do tricks and stuff. But I have, he wore overalls all the time. So I'm going to have some pictures done of me in a pair of overalls that were like his, with a lit cigarette, holding a whip. And I still have my mom's last pack of cigarettes that she had in her purse when she passed away. And so symbolic. I'm going to do that. If I ever write a book or this podcast does really well or whatever, it'll probably become the like cover photo for that. And it's going to be for an artist here in town. She's going to do the pictures, and so it will be something that she can probably put in shows or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see that when we do it. We're actually going to do it when we get back from our trip. But he, like I said, he provided a secure lifestyle, but it came at a cost. When I was about 13, 14 years old, I would work during the summer. Like, I worked doing watermelons, I did a snow cone stand, I've done square bales of hay during the summer, I painted a house and barn and stuff. Like, I would work all summer long and save my money, and I'd buy my own school clothes. Because if he bought my clothes, I had to model those clothes. And I got burnt out on that pretty quick, so I started buying my own clothes. I started washing my own clothes because I didn't want my dirty clothes to be where anybody could find them. Just little things like that I did through my teenage years because of the things that were going on at home. And it's so weird. It's like we grew up in a town where everybody knows everybody's business, so everybody knew how he was, and nobody said anything. It's quite interesting looking back now, because something like that happening now, somebody would blast it and it would go viral and cops would show up or whatever. And I say that, and I know people now that live down, like we call them river rats. They live down on the river and they live like that every day. It's not a big deal. One person's trauma is another person's normal, I guess. Interesting. Anyway, I feel like I'm kind of rambling this morning. So we didn't really travel, because we didn't have the money. My mom wanted to travel, but she never had the money, and he wasn't the kind of person to travel. But I remember I was 15 and our band went to compete in San Antonio for state, and I got to go. And that was just insane that we rode this big charter bus to San Antonio. And looking back now, and I know all these small rural schools do those kinds of trips. Like our band, every other year from state, they take a band trip. Like they're in Florida right now. I think they go Florida, New York, and somewhere else. And for some of these kids in these rural towns, that is the only time they'll ever leave that area. And I know for people who live in the city and that travel and they do all these worldly things, it's probably hard for them to grasp that some people never leave the area where they grew up. And so I have to say, that I took that trip, and I didn't travel after that, obviously. But how old was I? 20s? Early 20s, probably. My best friend traveled since she was a kid. Her dad lived in Philadelphia, and she would go see him during the summers. It wasn't anything for her. And they had come out with the Garmin. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically like your Google Maps on your phone, but it's on one that works by satellite, and you plug it into your car, and it just kind of, we set ours up in the corner of the windshield, and you put in the address and it would take you to it, just like Google Maps. She had gotten a Garmin, and on weekends and during the summer and things like that, we would load the kids up and just go to random places. Like, we would drive all the way to Mississippi, and that's a few hours from here, and just do all these random crazy trips. And we'd go to Galveston all the time, which is like 3-4 hours from here. And so I think she's really the one that I have to say got me out of East Texas and was able to explore more than just the area I grew up in. And so I, of course, kept telling my kids, there's a big world out there. If you come back home, that's fine, but you need to go get a taste of it. And a couple of my kids have done that, and they're back home. But I think that everybody should experience something outside of what their norm is. I'm really grateful for some of the people that I met in my later teens and early 20s, because I was able to understand that what my normal was really wasn't normal, and I could have something different. And I wanted something so different. I would lay in bed at night and cry because I didn't understand that I could make the choice to not be in that anymore. And when I finally did make that choice, I was blessed with the right people to come in. Am I running out of time?
You're doing pretty good.
Okay. That showed me that I could leave and start over and do something different with my life. And I just knew I didn't want the fighting. I didn't want all the drinking. I did enjoy people coming over and eating and doing the trail rides and playing dominoes and that kind of thing. I did enjoy that, but I didn't enjoy all the rest of it, and I didn't want any of that. And so I just wanted something different. And I feel like if anybody's watching this and they feel stuck, you are not stuck. You are one decision away from changing your life. But with that being said, that one decision can change it in a negative way, and I did do that to myself right after I moved out. I chose to be with the wrong people because even though I knew things weren't right and I really didn't want to be there, my mom was like, "You're fine, things are going to be fine," because I asked to come back home and she told me no. But I made a decision that just altered my life as well as others. And it's you have to, with every decision, you have to think about the butterfly effect from it. So, reach for something more, but reach for something more positive. And I'm so, Bill, I am so trailing off and random and I came in thinking I'm going to talk about this, and then I start talking about other things and my mind just goes somewhere else, and now I'm just so all over the place, I guess.
Should we wrap?
Well, no, but you may need to pause it. Did you say we were running out of time pretty close?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to pause and be back in just a second.
Cool.
Okay, so we're back from the pause. Anyway, so I'm so bad about just trailing off, y'all. I'm sorry. I have so many stories to say, and you can totally comment and ask questions, and I'll try to make sure to answer them in next podcast and so forth like that. But anyway, so I grew up kind of being an only child from about 10 on, because my brother went off and started living his life and doing his own thing. And so it was just me, and I'm not even going to lie, I was, for a poor kid, I was a spoiled brat. If I got up in the morning and told Mom I wanted to have pancakes, she would make me pancakes. My mom was a homemaker, so she was home all the time. And it's really funny because I know to some people we were probably poor white trash. But I think there's a difference in being poor and being poor white trash. And maybe I say it because I grew up so poor. If you're poor, you don't have money and you struggle. But you're clean, your house is clean, your yard is clean, your cars are clean. If you're poor white trash, you know, the kids are running around, probably hasn't had a bath in a day or two because maybe you don't even have running water. I know people like that. But you just don't keep anything clean. I've had renters before, when they move out, you're just like, how in the world were you living in this? It has a smell. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It just has a distinct smell. And it's not clean. The yard is not clean. There's just vehicles piled up everywhere. There's trash not thrown away. To me, that is poor white trash. Because it does not take money to be clean. It does not take money to throw something away. And so I think there's a difference there. So if people ask, I'm not poor white trash, I'm just poor. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. My mom always kept a clean house. She always had a really nice yard. We would ride on Sundays. That's what we did. You got in the car and you ride around, and you know, we didn't have social media. If you drove by somebody's house and you knew them and they were home, you stopped and sat and visited. That's how we used to operate. For all the people that don't even want to open their door to someone or answer their phone when someone calls, you would have never survived back in the 80s and the 90s. Because that's how we were. We were social. And you'd go over to, you know, Aunt Eva's and hang out and eat Sunday leftovers with them and go home or whatever. Or we'd ride over to Peppa's and they would all sit at the table and smoke cigarettes and the kids would all go play. But my mom had a green thumb, and apparently her mother had a green thumb. Do not ask me what happened, because plants come to me to die. If they're in the office, I can keep them alive, but if they're at my house, I seem to kill them. I don't know how I do that. But anyway, she and I would ride around with the shovel in the back of the car, and we would ride the back roads, and if she saw flowers on the side of the road in the ditch, she would stop, and I'm losing hair. She would stop and dig them up and take them home and put it in her flower bed, and she had the prettiest yard. And we had St. Augustine grass, so the grass was always thick and soft, and our vehicles were clean. And so that's why I say I wasn't poor white trash. You can call me that if you want to. I don't care. But I wasn't. I was just poor. And in the earlier years, I was hungry, but in the later years, I was not. And, we just, I remember Mom would cook. She could cook really good food. And whoever was at the house they would eat with us. And at one point, I was probably driving. Was I about 16? My mom got this grant through the government where they come in, I guess if you're low income or whatever, they would come in and kind of revamp your house, but it would be HUD regulated. So like steps had to have, a handrail and, different things like that. Anyway, the people that I guess bid on it, the contracting company, they came and started working on the house, and my mama cooked their lunch every day. They would sit down at the table with us and eat lunch every day while they were working on our house. I mean, it's so funny. And part of me truly misses the way things were then. And don't get me wrong, I like being able to keep up with a lot of people, like classmates and people that don't live here anymore, and I get to watch their kids grow up and all the wonderful things they're doing in life because of social media. But I kind of miss, how do you say it, the good old days when we would just ride around, and if someone was home, we'd stop and visit. And I don't do that now at all. Like, if I go sit at Tanya's for the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything on Saturday, and I'll text Tanya, are you going to be home? Can I come just sit with you? Where, back in the day, I'd just roll up on her and be like, hey, what are you doing? And it's so funny how things have changed so much. COVID did a lot of that. COVID changed a whole lot. And Tanya and I used to take a birthday trip every year. We did it for several years, but COVID put a damper on it because we couldn't travel anymore, and we just haven't picked it back up. Life, kind of got a hold of us, but I don't think we move slow enough anymore. And even though a lot of people will be like, oh, you had such a tragic childhood, I truly miss the good parts of that. And I miss the things that were important then that, we just don't do anymore. And I think people in the South understand what I'm talking about because that's just how we all operated. But I think the newer generation just would not be able to function like that at all. It's kind of sad. But I don't know. Anyway, I've rambled long enough probably. My brother will be here in just a little while, a couple hours I think, and I have to pack. We are about to leave. I'm going to put this on schedule to drop so that I don't have to worry about it. I will probably pick a different time, and I keep saying that instead of having Bill set me up and me do it like this, that on days that the moments hit me, that I have a story that I want to share. I just need to do it from my cell phone and us figure out how to do it later. Just because sometimes, like, I can be driving in the car or whatever and hear a song, and the mood hits me, and I'm like, man, I should go home and record. But by the time I get here and I get in the house and get the dogs out and Carolyn's coming and talking to me and all these things, that moment's kind of gone. And I just feel like I can connect with people on a different level if I share when those moods hit me. What was I coming back from yesterday? Graduation party. I was driving back yesterday from the graduation party, and it hit, and I was like, I should totally share when we moved in with Al. I still remember, I'll share this before I get off. So he comes in and he sits down at the table, and Mama's kind of piddling in the kitchen, and he has me sit in his lap, and so I sit in his lap, and I'm asking him questions, and I'm talking to him, and he tells me about his horses, and we're going to come live with him. And I was like, can I call you Dad? And he was like, yeah. And I still remember this, and I'm going to share it with y'all now, and I'll probably share it 100 more times because it's funny. He had this tongue twister that he would do, and he liked to do it when people were at the house and they were really drunk because it would confuse the hell out of them. But he taught it to me, and he would call me and make me come in there and do it, and he did it that first day I met him. And I thought it was funny because I was a little kid. I was 9 or 10, and this was hilarious. But it says, I was in my Whirly Willy Whack-em, and I called Tom, I was in my Whirly Willy Whack-em, and I saw a bony back-em in my Whirly Willy Whack-em, and I called Tom Tackham to get the bony back-em out of my Whirly Willy Whack-em. Now, I'm sure you're like, what the hell did she just say? I was in my Whirly Willy Whack-em, so I was in my field, and I saw a bony back-em, which is the cow, and I called Tom Tackham, which is the dog, to come get the bony back-em, which is the cow, out of my Whirly Willy Whack-em, which is the field. It's ridiculous, y'all. Just ridiculous. But I was a little kid, and I thought it was great, and I thought it was hilarious, and then he taught me to do it, which after all these years I can still say it. And he would call me in there and have me say it to people, and people just thought it was hilarious. Y'all, it's dumb. It's so dumb. And it's dumb that I still remember it. But, wow, I haven't said that tongue twister in a while. That's funny. See, things just hit me, and I'm like, oh my God, let me share that story. So I'm gonna wrap up, and I've already scheduled the next episode to hit. I'll schedule this one to drop. That's one thing YouTube definitely should keep for creators. When we post something, we can post the day and time that we want it to be released, and so that's really nice. I am still trying to be very conscious of my verbiage, because there's a lot of things you can't say or do, and some of the words I said today, they may throw back, and I may have to go back in and edit them out. We'll see. But I appreciate you guys joining me. I will try to be better about not rambling on and on like I am. I do enjoy sharing stories, and we're getting a little closer to that. The stories are about to get real wild. And I may have to stop halfway through and be like, remember people, this stuff is not suitable for all viewers. But I don't know. I just, like I said, I'll try to be really good about not rambling. See, I just lost my train of thought there. That's what happens when he leaves me in here by myself. I need to get a co-host. I think y'all would enjoy it more if I do that. Anyway, so I just want to say thanks for joining me. You guys be sure to go join me on Facebook and Instagram, because I'm going to be posting a lot of little videos and pictures throughout our trip. We're about to leave out. It'll be the first time I've left the country other than going to Playa del Carmen with Tanya for my birthday, or our birthday. Today's her birthday, by the way. Happy birthday, Tanya. I love you. But you guys be sure to go join me. So if you go to shadeofthepineywoods.com, my social media links are on there. On Facebook, I do believe I'm either CJ Sanders or it's Southern Hippie 936, and that's HIPPIE. And then YouTube is Shade of the Piney Woods. And my Instagram, I think, is Southern Hippie 936 is my handle on there as well. And I say that because I'm a true Southern girl, but I'm kind of hippie because I really love the retro hippie stuff. And so you guys be sure to go follow me on social media and stuff. Share my stuff so we can get more viewers. I have made some t-shirts that I didn't make them. Ray Sterling did them for me. She's going to do some more for me, and I'm going to set up a link under my YouTube where you guys can order merch, because who knows, maybe one day something will go viral and it'll be like the Chit Show or something. I don't know. Anyway, you guys be sure to follow us and be a part of us, and I don't know, maybe somewhere along the way I'll give somebody some hope that feels like their life is a shit show. You are just one decision away from it not being a shit show anymore. I promise things can be better, because mine are better. And don't forget to catch our next episode. And it was great talking with you guys. Bye.